Hey friends, Heath Home here. Welcome to another Sunday Fun Day live stream. Today I thought I would explore a new music idea and show you how I produce with Ableton Live. I'll explain what I'm doing along the way, so whether you're completely new to music production and Ableton Live or you're a seasoned pro, I'm sure there'll be some key takeaways for everyone in today's live stream. In the end, the goal here is to inspire you to boot up Ableton and go and make some music. So feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat and I'll do my best to answer them as we go along. And so without further ado, let's dive in to today's Sunday Fun Day live stream. Just a quick one, looking at the chat already, there was a message already in the chat today when I logged in to YouTube from Protector Line. Shout out to Protector Line, I hope you're doing good. Not sure if I'll make the stream, but I'll definitely watch later. Cheers for that. I'm thinking Josh Wink, Orbital and Chemical Brothers vibe. Not enough tutorials on that style around, so looking forward to it. Well, Protector Line, I did comment in the chat there. Let's see the direction of how today's music idea goes. Love those suggestions, and if it doesn't happen in today's stream that we kind of go old school acid tech break vibe, I was thinking kind of modern today, but if we do end up there, then absolutely we cover it. If not, I'll save that and do a specific stream where we dive into it. And thanks for your input. I love it when people get in the chat, write to me, message me and let me know kind of ideas like that, because I definitely do read the comments and take those things on board and want to give you things you want to view and watch and see and learn from. All right, so what I've got here is just a very quick tester project. I'm just going to hit play. If anyone's already in the live stream and they don't mind letting me know if my microphone levels are good, that would be amazing and helpful. And we're just going to have a quick play of music here. Which is a little idea I'm working on at the moment. So I'm just going to use that just purely to do that quick test run. As I said, if anyone's here and they're listening, please let me know. Give me a thumbs up, drop it in the chat and say that's working fine. That would be amazing. So let's start with a fresh screen. We're not going to save anything that was changed there. And what we're going to do to start with, of course, as we normally would do, is pick a BPM. I think 128 would be a nice place to begin tempo wise, and let's have a scale, and let's maybe say that we choose something like a minor key, perhaps C minor, which is a nice key. If we bring up a MIDI clip, click on the scale button, we see with C minor that we get, let's just have a quick instrument on here as well. Let's just drop an operator there. So we can test also my MIDI controllers, all good. Pop that in, make sure this track is armed. And so we've got C and D, E flat, A flat, B flat, F, G. It's kind of a nice key, it's got some emotion in there, so I think that will be good. Let me bring up my octave a bit. We could hear that note wasn't in the scale, which was the E. So a nice mixture of sharps, flats, and white keys, which mixes things up a little bit. So not a white key only scale, C minor. So let's have a crack at that. Now, first things first, kind of put it in the thumbnail of the video, acid text break. Well, I wanted to kind of, I don't know why, I'm just kind of in a bit of a mood at the moment for acid. That's 303 like sounds, and of course that fits nicely into the suggestion of Protector Line, Josh Wink. Definitely, obviously a lot of his great tracks, Are You There, Higher State of Consciousness, were all about the Roland TB-3303. Chemical Brothers as well, I'm sure, had TB-303, the original unit. So starting with that, if we look at Ableton Live and we sort of surf through the instruments and we kind of like put acid up here in the search bar, we get a few options. Now, some of these that are listed here in my case are not just Ableton only. They're kind of like other third-party devices and things like that. So what I have done is I did bookmark one of Ableton's presets that's an acid sounding instrument. It sounds like this. And it's actually pretty good. It actually sounds pretty good. What I found previously, so now that we're at 12, I'm not sure when this particular instrument was made as a preset within Ableton Live, and that means all of you guys and girls can grab the acid machine and put it on your track and start working with that. But the last time I looked, definitely in 11, a little while back, I couldn't really find some instrument that convinced me that it was a good preset or patch that came with Ableton Live that sounded acid-like. So I kind of went ahead and made my own. So I quite like to show that to you guys and girls today. So let's say user library, and I'm going to type in silver. And basically, let's bring that over here. And you can, we'll just give this MIDI clip a quick demo. So there's a little demo MIDI clip that comes with the instrument. Okay, and the thing is, as I said, I made my own preset here, and I did quite a lot of work. I went and studied all the information online about the Roland TB303s, really got nerdy about it, looked at the circuitry, tried to understand how things were mapped. Obviously, you know, a real Roland TB303, little analog machine that it is, they're very expensive these days. They fetch thousands of euros, dollars if they're an original. And they're all very unique in the sound they make. So there are some good VSTs. I have a hardware synth that does analog sounds pretty good, but I was trying to create a preset here in Ableton that we could all kind of use that kind of got pretty close to a TB303 sound. And as I said, I went really hard at understanding kind of what's under the hood and tried my best to make that possible in this preset. And I laid it out in the same sort of ways as the synth. And if we open up the synth here in the show and hide tabs on the left here, I made this small processing rack within the patch, and it's quite easily removed or switched on and adjusted. And it's just simply a bit of processing that, as I said, I've kind of labeled here, and you can go in there and turn it off and make your own processing nice and easy. There's also a tuner in here if you're looking to understand what kind of pitch you're achieving if you adjust the tuning. So yeah, I will put a link to this in the description below. A small disclaimer, it isn't a free, I have lots of free wavetable patches on my Gumroad page. This one is one that you need to purchase if you wish to have a copy of it, but for a couple of coffees, you can have your very own Roland TB303 alike preset that you can drop into your Ableton Live projects 11 or 12 and make these sort of sounds that we're looking to do today. So that's enough chat from me. I'm going to use the silver box so I can actually just grab this channel. I'm not going to use that MIDI that was already there. That's something we're going to make, which is what we're going to look at now. And we've got this sort of scale going of C minor. Rather than sort of like, I think when it comes to sort of acid lines and things like that, we could play it on the keyboard, but I think it's quite a nice thing that suits a sequencer of some sort. So let's have a look at the MIDI effects folder and find something that you guys and girls should have if you're working with Ableton Live 12 or 11. And that is the melodic steps sequencer. So let's grab a copy of that and drag it in front of the silver box. And we'll put that all the way over to the left here. And if we hit play, we'll start to get a bit of a sound happening here. And if we look at what's going on with the melodic steps, we've got all these tabs down the left-hand side, giving us possibility to sort of randomize the octaves, randomize the pitch, randomize the length of the notes, the velocity, and the chance of how often this sequence of events happen. So over to the right, we've got in the numbers how many steps are active. So 2 steps is what you can see in the yellow. The rest are all grayed out, so we can adjust that. So we can bring in more steps. We've then got dice alongside. The 5 dice obviously does more extreme change, and the 2 dice does less extreme randomization of this. And then if you hit X, you zero that out and reset it. We've also got over to the side here a bit of scale information, so we might as well change that to match what we're doing, which is minor. And we can sort of say here a bit of a range of, well, let's say we choose our root note. Do we want to be a bass line, or do we want to be like more a riff? So I might go up to C3 and make that my starting point, right? So I can kind of set my root note in that area there. And then you've got some more ability here to change things, such as half tempo, double time, triplets. You can change the swing. You can input MIDI notes to change things with your keyboard. So we can add MIDI input if we wish, if we turn this on. Right, so you can have the keyboard make that change as it goes along, but I'm not going to use that, and resync would make everything reset again. So let's start with a little bit like I've done. The octaves can be switched off for a moment, basically neutral. Let's have some pitch. Let's go for 5. And let's open up some more steps. Let's do the velocity. Let's maybe randomize it a bit more until we find something we like. Okay, I'm going to bring the steps down from 15. Let's try maybe a bit of octave. And you can see here where the next note is triggering. And of course, if you want, you can draw in here. You don't have to use the dices. You can go in here and sort of draw with your mouse and kind of make things change like that, right? So the synth sounds a bit weird at the moment, but we'll get that working in a moment. But for now, it's just like basically getting a bit of a sequence rolling over here. So now we can open up our filter a bit, and very much like the original TB303, it's essentially just one oscillator, the original synth, and it was either a saw wave or a square wave. So I've got this knob at the bottom here, on the bottom left corner, where you can choose a saw oscillator. So you can hear much more sort of squelchy, or you can have a square wave, or you can go in between if you like. And then we can add, like if we put the processing on here, this little rack that I've got over here, which is a delay and some bit of reverb, you can hear the difference that makes. And then we can shape the synth a bit. Okay, quite nice already. So let's now perhaps go and grab ourselves some beats to go with this. And we'll start with that as a starting point for our acid line. It's nice and melodic, and as I said, everything I've used so far, particularly with the melodic steps and what I've sort of walked through there, this is something you can use. It's a really nice little simple sequencer to get your head around sort of how to use sequencers in your musical workflow, and a nice way to come up with ideas like this instead of, you know, perhaps if you're not super skilled on a keyboard and, you know, that's not your way to come up with musical ideas, then this can be a great way to get started. So I'm going to look now for a nice kick drum, and let's just have a bit of a kick happening. Let's say that should bring up some kicks that I quite like. Cover up a bit who it's by. We don't need to promote anybody else at this point in time. And let's say we're going to just drop one of those down here and get a little MIDI pattern rolling. Just 4 on the floor kick. Well, that kick sounds quite nice. Might just have a little walk through the other kicks from the same pack. I think I'm just going to do it this way, the old-fashioned way. Okay, that's a nice punchy kind of old school sounding kick. Let's just bring our acid synth down a little bit. Right, and like I said, if the processing for you isn't something that you want to start with, then you can just switch off this rack behind the synth, and then we can go over and we can start from scratch ourselves with, you know, some of the different sounds we might like. So I think since I built that rack, raw is now something I would definitely incorporate. And I might use, for example, in the delay side of things, I might use a favorite that's outside of Ableton Live. I might use Valhalla. Or I might go and grab myself Ableton's Echo. So we'll come back and work on those in a little bit. But we just want a little bit of atmosphere from that for now. Okay, maybe we'll have a tom drum to work a little bit with the kick drum. So we've got this kind of interplay between those two. So I'm going to just pop back to my samples, and let's say we go for tom, one shot. I'll filter that down. Let's try this one. Let's have a little bit of velocity adjustment on these so they're a little bit more vibey. So we're just going to come down the bottom here. So you can hear there's a lot of range in this sound, and we can automate all these parameters. Yeah, I'm liking sort of something a bit melodic like that. Okay, let's build up our drums a bit. Let's have something like a shaker going on. So let's clear our search. Go to one-shot shaker up. Maybe this one, we'll change it in a moment if we don't like it. Let's have it a fast shaker on the 16ths. Let's get some, again, velocity into that. It's a bit bright for my liking, this one. Just have a listen for, yeah, maybe this one. And maybe we can change some of these shakers so they've got a little bit of pitch. By the way, feel free, as I said, if you are with me in the live stream here today, to drop any questions you might have about what I'm doing and the workflow that's going on in the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. Any questions? Just makes those shakers a little bit more interesting. Pitch them down slightly as well. We have them panning a little bit left and right. Let's have a bit of erosion maybe on the shaker, just to get a little bit more character out of it. Drop into the audio effects. Difference with and without. Now we might look for a breakbeat to go with this, something where we've got, let's pop into Ableton's packs that you get with Ableton Live Suite, and there's a great pack that I often use a lot to find breakbeats, break selection by Sample Magic, and you can pop in to the samples folder of it, and there are a whole heap of folders here of vintage breaks. Let's have a little look here. All right, this one kind of fits nicely the vibe of the track so far. What we can do is have a look at it. I probably don't feel like I would quantize it too much. The timing's pretty good in terms of how it's sitting on the grid. I mean, if we were to listen to it with the metronome on its own, the breakbeat, I think we'll find it's pretty good. Yeah, that's nice, and it's got its own kind of groove and vibe to it, which is great. So I'm not going to adjust the timing of that. What I might do though is turn on the beat preserve transient to the straight through arrow, and that would allow me to shape the kind of fullness of this loop and adjust that to taste. So we've got a little bit of adjustment there so we can really trim it. We could also remove where the kind of kicks are in this particular loop, so there is a little bit of low end, but we could also scoop that out with some EQ perhaps and leave the sort of positions where the, as you can see here, this is the EQ on the breakbeat, where the low end is, so that's going to get in the way of our kick and bass that we might add in a bit. So we can kind of get our breakbeat so we get the snare in it. But we kind of cut away the excess stuff down here. And the kick that's happening here, just in here, it's getting pretty much cut away, so we just kind of get the click of it, almost a little bit of punch from it. You can also bring the top down if it's getting in the way in a bit of our shakers and hi-hats, so it could be a more And to give you a further tip, if we wanted as well, speaking about the kick drums, well, they're falling generally if I listen to this loop. 1, 2, 3, 4. They're on the classic position, the same as the kick drum here. They're on all the quarter notes. So another little tip for you here is you could go into the envelopes of this breakbeat and the clip envelope properties, go down the bottom here, and we could go to the clip, change it to gain, and then we could turn on our pencil tool and we could essentially draw where some of those drum hits are. As you can see here, it cuts them out. Now that might not be what we're looking for, but we can also adjust those so they could be brought up like a lot, you know, kind of, so it's a lot sort of shallower cuts, and we could make sure there's no clicks and things like that. But I'm not going to do that move today. Perhaps another day I can show you how to fine tune that, but in this case I'm kind of already happy with the EQ decision and to leave a bit of that kind of kick feeling that's in that loop still there. Let's check it against the shaker, so the top end of the brakes. We want to be able to hear our shaker. That's our shaker. Here it would be very hard to hear the shaker that we've already got. So again, there's the shaker. Perhaps somewhere like that. So let's see maybe about a bass line here. And let's do a little bit of housekeeping. Just label everything up so I know what's what here. Okay, maybe we'll introduce a little bit of meld. Get that nice kind of indie dance sort of bass line happening. Some movement to it as well, so it's got a little bit of vibe. Say we don't really need to be polyphonic at this point, it's just a single note. Put it into legato, into mono, should I say. Let's bring up the drive. Then we have the second oscillator of the meld as well. This is just one oscillator at the moment. So we can add a little bit of a different layer. And let's maybe move it to the saw. And detune these a little bit from each other as well. One positive, one negative. And let's maybe say on the amp envelope, on oscillator 1 we've got a very plucky envelope, and now we've got a more full envelope. Could be quite nice. So there's a difference, and then we can just bring down the volume a bit on oscillator 2. So it's just adding that nice kind of little bit of crunch, that bit of character there, right? Let's maybe get a bit more action on this bass line. Let's say we do a little bit of work in the matrix. Let's maybe have the filter frequency of oscillator 1 moving a little bit, this filter frequency here. And we could do it with an LFO, I think. Well, let's try first an envelope. That's just gently opening the filter each time one of those notes trigger. Let's maybe also have it on oscillator 2. So we're using this envelope here to open up the filter a little bit each time one of these notes happens down here. Let's maybe duplicate the bass line across, give ourselves a couple of bars, and we could try here. A nice little bit of something interesting happening at the end of the bass there, at the end of the phrase. Right, the next step, looking for something like a nice kind of open hi-hat of sorts. So let's say hi-hat and open. It'd be nice to get something like a kind of 909-ish one. Yeah, something like that could be interesting. So we've got a really proper old school kind of hi-hat potentially here on the offbeats. Let's try that. Up, simple pattern. Adjust the envelope a bit, get it to sit. Okay, I'm just going to pop in to do a little bit of housekeeping here. So this can be the bass, which was made by the Meld. This is going to be an open hi-hat. Give it a little bit of old school flavor there. Maybe do a second open hi-hat pattern. Let's try accenting also in the second one, the actual quarter notes, the strong beats. And actually, just going to undo that. Just going to pop these up for a second. And with that line there, I'm just going to bring them down in velocity. So that whole line of those a little bit quieter. Let's try it up there. Let's get these original grouping here. We'll just adjust them. We'll randomize the velocity of those a bit as well. Back in. And we might keep them up there at that pitch. But what do they sound like down here? Yeah, prefer them back up there. A bit too high, so it's kind of interesting. So one thing that could be really a good idea to do at this point in time, particularly with this sequence that we've got going with our acid synth, the silver box. By the way, that's a patch I made myself. If you're just jumping into the stream, it is available in my Gumroad store for a couple of coffees, the price of a couple of coffees. I will put at the end of today's stream a link down below in the description if you fancy yourself grabbing a copy of it. It was my intention of building it was that I couldn't find the preset in Ableton to bring that real TB303 sound to my projects, and so I went ahead and got all nerdy and tried to understand a lot about how to build one myself, and that's the end result there. And if you do grab a copy, it comes with lots of MIDI clips that you can try out in its own project file. Anyway, back over here, the point I was going to make is when we're working with a sequencer like this, there is sometimes the risk that maybe something happens, we save the project okay and everything like that, but we close it down and we open it up tomorrow and it doesn't sound the same anymore. That synth pattern doesn't sound the same anymore. The sequence isn't working the same. So maybe a good idea at this point in time, open up a brand new MIDI track next door to the Acid Synth. And what we want to do is in the in and outs of that new MIDI track, route the Acid Synth into there, make the track in, arm it. We don't need to listen to anything, so we can turn off the muted essentially, but we're armed, we're receiving the MIDI in from the Acid Synth, and now we can go ahead and record some of that MIDI. Let's do that. And let it run for a while. As you can see, there's all this beautiful MIDI going in here, all the random MIDI notes from that sequence. As there are a lot of ideas here, you might come back and listen through this and find a favorite 4-bar loop or 8-bar loop, and you make that your sequence, or you make a long sequence like this and then you have a 32-bar sequence of different notes going on through it. So it gives you lots of possibilities here. So I won't go too much further for the purposes of today's live stream, but let's say another 4 bars here. And now we've sort of safeguarded a bit that sequence, and we can just drag that over to the Acid Synth track. We actually don't need this MIDI track anymore, so we can delete that. And now here we have the sum recording the sequence. We can go down here, we can actually switch off the sequencer, leave it there if you like, just switch it off. And we can now go into here, and if we wish, we could go searching for our favorite 8 bars, or like I said, we could loop up a bigger section than that. You could record out 32 bars of MIDI and let it be randomizing like it was doing, you know, over a certain number of bars. But now we've got so you might move across here and say, okay, well, I prefer that. 8 bars. Or back here. Or here. I think this looks interesting, this section for me, so I'm going to stick with that for now. On this bass line, just want to work on it a little bit. Right, and now we've gone a bit old school today. Shout out to Protector Line, who kind of maybe kicked that off a little bit. It's still modernish, but it's got a nod with that open hi-hat to the past, also the breakbeat. That's a great thing about using something like an organic breakbeat like this, is that we're bringing something kind of organic in the mix here, so it's kind of adding a nice bit of kind of real drum programming and feeling to what essentially the rest of is, which is very electronic and in the box. So we might just have a quick look and see if we've got a little sample we might be able to pull up here. Quite like what was kind of happening at the end there, so let's just try this.
For example, I wake up and it's 10:12, and then I go back to sleep, and I have those long, intricate, beautiful dreams that seem to last for hours, and then I wake up and it's 6 to 12 minutes, right, of brain activity. For example, I wake up and it's 10:12, and then I go back to sleep, and I have those long, intricate, beautiful dreams that seem to last for hours, and then I wake up and it's 10:13. Yeah, exactly. 6 to 12 minutes, right, of brain activity. That could be your whole life.
I'd love to just pull a word out of that, but that might not be as easy as that. So let's just have a little listen to what else I have in this folder.
You have to look at the evolution of the organism and then at the development of its interaction with the environment.
Clean that up with a bit of EQ. Yeah, it's interesting around that section, but there might be other parts as well, for sure. Yeah, let's maybe try that. Kind of want it really in the background, so that's sort of something I'm looking for. As I said, I could play around with that a little bit more later. The question is whether we're going to add something here to go with the acid synth. So let's say a little bit more housekeeping again, so we can put here that we've got some Vox on there. It's just a little bit of a background kind of atmosphere thing. So we don't need the MIDI in the name there anymore. And we've obviously got some options here, which is also nice to have some variations. So the same with the open hi-hat, we've already got two patterns of that, one with the on beats as well as off beats. One's just purely off beat. And with this, we could very easily go and have a second acid synth line for a variation in some part of our song where we loop up a different part of the recording, for example, somewhere over here. So that's the nice thing about doing a long take like that, and always thinking like this about ways of kind of how you can evolve your song with what you already have. So here we might make this bass line a 1 and a 2 as well, and with the 1 I might actually go back to what I originally had, which was literally all of these notes just pedaling on the C. And then we've got that nice little pattern where we can make the bass goes somewhere new. So if I can encourage you, boys and girls, to kind of think about things like that all day long, it's like, you know, creating variations early on like this and thinking about, oh great, that bass could go from there to there and the hat can go from here to here, is going to make your life so much easier when it comes to coming out of this loop and into an arrangement. We've already got little bits of progression with some of our individual sounds, and we can continue to do that with, you know, each of our instruments here. The tom could be another pattern, the shaker can have another pattern, the kick drum could be a different kick. So we could have like, what could we do with a kick? We could have something like a breakbeat kick, perhaps, that we could use in, you know, a breakdown or something. Perhaps we keep the kick in the track and we have like a broken beat kick. Let's try that. All right, so we could create ourselves another kick drum there. Bring this breaks, just see if it works pitching it down a bit. So again, we might do 2 versions of the breaks, one pitch down and one not. That gives us a couple of versions of the breakbeat. Let's make 2 the pitch down one. So now we can move from the not pitch down breakbeat to, again, gives us a little bit of a variation. Right, I'm just going to do a quick save there so that we can return to this if something goes awry. Let's just save this as a live stream. So live streaming assets tech goodness, and we're just going to drop that into this year's folder. Let's just fix that, a letter missing there. Asset tech goodness, let's save that. Collect all and save, so we put everything into that folder, and now we're good to go. Also, because I want to play around with the acid synth a little bit, and that will allow us to come back to how it originally sounds, but there's lots of scope here to develop. Could be going in this direction, for example. Yeah, I think this might try an LFO here on the modulating the envelope amount, which is going to kind of like sort of make everything a bit plucky and then open out a little bit. Let's have a try and see what that sounds like, because I think it's going to be the part that might make this sound really, really interesting over time as it evolves, this sequence. So we're going to map that to that. I just want to set the range of how much it's modulating that. Let's try to note sync. could have completely random here, which I think might be the best here. And let's slow it down. Pop a bit of reverb on this vocal so I can sort of kind of push it into the back a bit. Trying out scene 2. That kick drum pattern is definitely for like a breakdown, as I said, rather than a main kick pattern. All right, so let's maybe have another instrument in the mix, another copy of Meld perhaps, and see if we can add something else a little bit musical to jam along with the acid and the bass line. Again, if you are joining today's live stream, well, welcome here. My name is Heath Home. Do drop a comment in the chat. If you've got any questions, pop it in there and I'll do my best to answer them. Today is like a, how I produce live stream. I'm just making a new music idea here from scratch with the idea to kind of use this nice synth preset that I built to make these acid sounds and then build an idea around it. And I'm also taking a bit of the inspiration from a comment in the chat left by Protector Lion, who asked to see something that was Josh Wink, Orbital Chemical Brothers vibe. Let me know if I'm nailing that vibe. I'm not sure if I am, but I hope you're enjoying the vibe that we're getting here. So I'm gonna have a little noodle on my keyboards. Okay, let's see what we've got there. Yeah, I think I can work with this little end of the sequence here. So I might just copy this down. So again, thinking like before, there are other possible variations in that little noodle that I just did on the keyboard, so we might as well park a full copy down there of all of this action here, because we might revisit it. But in this little section here, I think I've got something I can work with, so I'm just going to crop that area, and then I'm going to duplicate that like so. Let's try quantizing this a little bit, especially these notes. I'm going to open up transform. Let's maybe have one of these in a different note position. Try these up an octave. Yeah, I think they're in a good place where they are. Let's now work on the synth sound a little bit. Alright, we'll go back to more traditional. Actually, let's try maybe instead of meld, let's have a change of plans here. Let's get, because we're kind of going in this bit of a old school direction, let's move it analog instead. Make the synth monophonic. Let's have a bit of unison. make it plucky. Want it to fit with the acid synth so they could play together. A bit of noise. Okay, let's work on this new analog synth sound a little bit. This note here should be here, I believe. And also might be able to come a bit earlier. I'll try not to quantize them too much. Gives it a nice bit of more organic feeling. But sometimes a little bit too much is too much, so kind of brings it back into shape a little bit more there. All right. A bit of chorus on the analog synth. Let's have a look at how it's looking in the stereo image. Quite okay. And if we turn off the chorus, we'll see that we're virtually in mono. So the chorus is adding some nice little bit of width to the analog. So maybe this vocal track, let's try doubling that up. So we're actually going to have two, and let's take one of these and pitch it right down an octave. We just kind of layer the... We might go the other direction.
Couple of things. Taking a break from my wife, forgetting my son's birthday. And couple of things. Taking a break from my wife, forgetting my son's birthday. And couple of things. Taking a break from my wife, forgetting my son's birthday.
Okay, let's try it with the shifter instead of pitching it within the volume envelope.
Taking a break from my wife, forgetting my son's birthday. And couple of things. Taking a break from my wife, forgetting my son's birthday. And
make also the EQ different on the other vocal, the double. Trying to create a bit of a ghost sort of shadow to that vocal, so it's a little bit more interesting, a little bit thicker as well. Can be nice sometimes like that to put a filter on the master track just to feel out the vibe if you're making a club track, and do a little bit of filtering of the low end away, cut it away, and feel what it might feel like if you were in a breakdown and removing the bass to get that kind of vibe. So I'm actually going to wrap this up in about sort of 10 minutes. So let's say I'm going to do a little bit of a recap. So we kind of started with discussing about this kind of idea of today is how I produce and making music with Ableton Live. And a while back, when searching through all the synth presets of Ableton Live, I couldn't really find what I was looking for to make a convincing kind of acid 303 sound. So I decided to make my own preset and patch, which I have done here. It's called the Silver Box. I went super nerdy on it. I went and studied the circuitry of the 303 and tried to understand kind of what's mapped to what to make it sound the way it does. And so I've tried to recreate that here in this little device. I'll put a link below in the description below to it. It is available on my Gumroad page for the cost of a couple of coffees. So if you fancy grabbing yourself a copy of it, be my guest. So today I started with that, and I used the sequencer from Ableton Live. We find it in the MIDI effects. It's called Melodic Steps. I think it's a really nice introduction to using sequencers, as it's fairly nicely laid out and self-explanatory what you can do with it. And we created this synth pattern using this synth and that sequencer, and we ended up with this. And as I've explained as well, that inside this rack of the Silver Box, we have some processing, and it's quite adjustable, and you can also just switch it off and then build your own effects processing after the device. So if you're looking for that, just click on the show and hide on the side here, and then go in and you'll see that the synth is built using operator. There's a tuner as well. If you start to move things out of tune, you can kind of see if you're putting the repitch in tune here, which can be really helpful. In this case, that would work where I am, or if I can dial it right into the green, so I can repitch the whole synth. So that's what that's there for. And then we've got processing. Okay, and then basically there's a lot of adjustment here, and I would automate a lot of these parameters to get more interest as the track evolves. But I did add an LFO, a random one, to the global envelope modulation here, which is kind of opening and closing the synth envelopes. And we get that nice kind of bit of vibe to that. I then went and built up some drums, so we kind of just have a nice meaty kind of analog sort of kick, a little bit of a tom pattern. Vibes with the kick. Then I went over to make a bass, and we've got this two variations, just simply pedaling on the C. We're in C minor today, and then we've got this variation with some nice little pitch changes. That's all made in Meld. And it's using two layers to get this kind of nice interesting character of a nice kind of low layer with a little bit of a pluck from this oscillator B, which is a saw wave on top. Then I went over and started to build up the drums. So we've got shaker, a little bit of erosion on it, some nice pitch changes, so it's a little bit, again, a bit more interest in the pattern. And I found a breakbeat to go with this. We've got a couple of variations, just simply pitching it up and down and adjusting the amount of beat preservation inside. Then I went and made an open hi-hat. Nice kind of 909 sounding, old school 808 909 drum machine. And again, we've got two patterns, one following off and on beats, and one just on the off beats. Then found little vocal,
Couple of things.
just something to pop in the background.
Break for my wife, forgetting my son's
And now I've just been making
and couple of things.
just another little interesting weird kind of layer that can go with it, or one could play and the other one not. But that might sound strange on its own, but it might actually be quite cool because it's a bit more robot-y and kind of weird. the idea was to layer those two together. And then finally, I've just been kind of coming up with this kind of riffy synth, which I played in on the keyboard in C minor, quantized it a bit, added a few pitch changes, and then basically sat it in analog, started with meld, chose analog at the end, and I've added a bit of processing here to kind of get it to sit where I want it to sit, and all together we have this. And I think there's many possibilities here of how this track could kind of, you know, kick off. So just if we're jamming around with the parts. So if I just again do a quick save up there, we can then just put this acid synth just as the last little thing feature here, just put it through its paces a little bit. So let's say we save the live set as live stream acid tech goodness. I hope you agree on that. Obviously very subjective, those kind of things, but I hope you've found the video interesting and engaging and useful, and you've found some things you can take away, and hopefully it's inspired you to go and boot up Ableton Live and make some music. So let's just say that we've got that saved, and we can now kick off the playback again. Because some of the things I'd be looking at here would be getting stuck into this synth and thinking about over time how it can really evolve. You know, so there's a lot of possibilities there, and all of those macros of the synth, we can map them to our MIDI controller, and then what would be really nice with what I was just doing there is to record a lot of that as we start to lay out the track. So we've got this really nice evolving kind of acid synth line. So as I said, for today's Sunday Fun Day live stream, that's going to be a wrap. If you've been with me during the live stream, well, thanks of course for tuning in and listening. As I said a moment ago, I hope you found this video useful, beneficial, and you've got some new things to try out from it and take away. Try yourself inside of Ableton Live. If you do enjoy the content on this channel, have enjoyed watching this live stream, being a part of it, do consider giving it a thumbs up. Drop us a comment, let us know, like Protectorline did, something that you might like to see in a future video. That would be amazing. Hello to SVK UNNV. Hope you're doing good. I'm not sure if you're still there. I've just noticed that in the chat there. So yes, as I said, if you enjoyed the content on the channel, enjoyed this video, like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us a lot. Let's try and build a really nice community here and keep these live streams rolling. I will catch you on that note in next Sunday's live stream, and about all things Ableton Live. Maybe producing another music idea, working on this one. Let me know. Would you like to see me maybe start to arrange this track idea? That would be great to know. Have a fantastic rest of your Sunday. Happy creating, and ciao for now. Goodbye. Ciao.